Hi everybody, today I am making a cake that I have always wanted to make, and that is a Candyland Castle cake. I have very fond memories of playing this game when I was a kid, and I love the candy theme. Alright, let's get started on this cake. What I have here is a wooden board that I had cut at the hardware store. I found a smaller hardware store in my area that will cut any size for me, and this one was only $3. The board in size is about 18 by 20 inches. I am covering it in aluminum foil tape to make it food safe and because the wood had some rough edges. Next, I'm covering it in fondant with Tylose mixed into it. If you have not used Tylose before, that is actually a powder that will help the fondant dry out. I am brushing my board with water and then I move my fondant over onto the board. It wasn't quite big enough, so I'm making it work by rolling it out just a little more. Once I have my board covered, I'm trimming away the excess and I let it dry out for a few hours. Since I want this to look like the board, I'm adding another layer of fondant. It's the same process. Roll out the fondant, place it on top of the blue fondant, but this time I'm using a straight edge to cut off about a half an inch of just the green. Don't cut all the way through to the blue. And this is what it looks like after I've cut it. To make the green look grassy, I am using a grass tip to texturize it. Doing this part took quite a while, but the small details like this make all the difference. I need to make the squares next, so I'm using a square cutter to cut out all the colored spaces, and then I place them onto my board. I had to trim some of the squares to make the path wind around the board. It doesn't have to be perfect. The kids will love it no matter what. Once I have all the squares lined up how I want them, I go back and attach them with edible glue. Moving on to the cake. For the bottom tier of my castle, I'm using two 7-inch squares. I level and tort both cakes. And I get them filled with a delicious American buttercream frosting, and I will put this recipe down in the description box. Alright, once I have it filled, I'm covering the outside of the cake with white chocolate ganache. White chocolate ganache is a 3-to-1 ratio, and that means 3 parts white chocolate to 1 part heavy cream. I always spend quite a while smoothing the sides. I am using an icing smoother here to scrape around the sides to get those sharp corners. Moving on to my top tier. I cut these cakes by hand. They were about 4.5 inches in diameter. I get these cakes stacked and filled, and I cover them in chocolate ganache this time. I smooth this one the same as my square cake, and I get a sharp top edge by dragging my icing smoother across the top edge in towards the center. I went around it a few times with a hot spatula too. Okay, time to cover it. I'm covering my cakes in Choco Pan modeling chocolate, but you certainly can cover it in fondant. And actually most people would go with fondant here. I've just been loving this modeling chocolate lately. I'm rolling out a sheet of modeling chocolate and I'm pressing an impression mat into it to give it a dotted texture. You can really use any texture mat that you have. I'm covering my square using a paneling method. If you do this with fondant, I suggest freezing the sheets of fondant before you put them on the cake so that they are easy to pick up and cut. I lay my chocolate on top of the cake and I smooth it out. Next, I place my metal ruler right underneath a sheet of modeling chocolate and I use my X-Acto knife to cut away the excess. I repeat this process all around the top edge and I'm cleaning it up with my X-Acto knife. The sides are similar. I've rolled out a sheet of modeling chocolate, but this time I'm using a frill cutter to give it that castle look on the top edge. Once I have it trimmed, I'm attaching the panel to my cake with water. And I cut the sides down in the same way by placing my ruler up against the cake and cutting it with my X-Acto knife. I do all the sides like this, starting with the 2 sides and then the front and back. My round cake is also the same. I start by covering the top and I trim it to fit. This strip of chocolate is for the sides of my cake. My cake started to settle just a tad and created a bump around the sides. I ended up going back later and fixing it, but for now I'm going to just proceed. So I'm rolling up my piece of modeling chocolate and I attach it to my cake with some water. Once I've unrolled it all the way around the cake, I trim it to match up nicely. Up next are the turrets. The two turrets in the front are skinnier, so I made these out of a piece of PVC pipe. I wanted these to be tapered, so my first piece of modeling chocolate will be for the bottom of the turret. I'm rolling it out thicker towards the bottom and thinner towards the top. And I attach it to my PVC pipe and I trim it to fit nicely. This will give it that tapered look that I was going for. Next, I'm rolling out another sheet of modeling chocolate, and this time I'm texturing it with a brick impression mat, and this will completely cover my turret. I also made two larger turrets that I made using paper towel rolls covered in aluminum foil tape. And I also made a few other smaller turrets, which I made them in the same way, and I will show you those later on. The tops of the turrets are really cute because they look like ice cream cones. These are easy to make. I am rolling out a piece of modeling chocolate into a thin cone shape that's small at one end and larger at the other. And then I twirl it up to look like a swirl of ice cream. I've made 7 swirls in total. 2 of them are going to get sprinkles. Just brush it with a little water before you add the sprinkles so they stick. And then 2 are getting a chocolate ganache drip. It's just like making chocolate ganache, but I actually thinned it out just a little bit. And then the last 3, I am keeping those plain because it looks pretty cute as is. Next up are the flags. I didn't want to overdo it, so I am making just 3 flags in 3 different colors. I've rolled out my fondant and I'm using a diamond cutter to cut out the flag shapes. I am brushing them with water and I wrap them around the top of a lollipop stick. For the front entrance of the castle, I've already baked a sugar cookie in a door shape, and now I'm using royal icing to pipe the entrance. While the icing is still wet, I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle yellow sanding sugar over it, and then I'm dumping off the excess. And once that has dried, I'm covering the entire cookie in royal icing, and I'm embellishing my door with some large sprinkles. Alright, let's put this together. First, I'm spooning some melted candy melts to my board, and I am moving my square cake over onto the board. Before I add my top tier, I'm pushing 4 bubble tea straws into my square cake. I've cut these dowels so they are the exact height of the cake. I am adding more melted candy melts, and I place my top tier on the cake. I'm not going to add a center dowel, but if you want to, you definitely can, and that will make it more sturdy. Next, I'm getting my turrets attached with yellow melted candy melts, and to make them even more taller, I'm adding ice cream cones to the turrets. I am adding a few more smaller turrets to the top. These top turrets need to be put into place when you get to your party location, as they will not travel well. I forgot that I got some marshmallows to fill my turrets. You can use candy if you want, but marshmallows are light, which is why I picked them. And next I'm adding my ice cream swirls to the top of the turrets. You can attach these with candy melts or royal icing if you're afraid that they will fall. Once I have all the swirls into place, I'm attaching my sugar cookie door with royal icing. And then I'm carefully pushing my flags into the swirls. The next part is the most fun part, the decorating. You can decorate your castle in any way that you'd like, and I actually think the kids would love to take over at this point and just completely cover it in candy in any way. I think that would be a really fun activity for kids. This candy that I'm wrapping around the turret is called a sour candy straw, and it is very hard to get to stick. It kept falling off, so that is something for you to know. And next I'm covering the top of the cookie with giant Smarties. I'm layering them up to look like roof tiles. I also used M&Ms to make it look polka dotted, and the windows are getting dusted to give it a shadowed look. These are topiary-like trees that I made out of modeling chocolate, a lollipop stick, and a gumdrop. Here I'm using green food color powder to give the board some different shades of green grass. The peppermint forest is up next. I'm creating snow out of royal icing, and I cannot forget to add some candy canes and peppermints. And then I'm covering the snow with white sprinkles. Next, I'm creating the shortcut that you can take by river to get to a higher space. This is royal icing that I colored blue, and then I'm making it look more like water by adding some dark blue food color gel and some white royal icing to look like water splashes. And next, I'm adding some chocolate chip rocks to finish it off. This next area is called Nana Nuts House, but I didn't have any peanuts, so I went with all chocolate kisses and mini peanut butter cups. The licorice lagoon is next, so I'm adding some red and black licorice logs, and I made a black lagoon with royal icing and black sanding sugar. To make the lollipop palace, I've pushed some small lollipops into gumdrops, and I'm attaching those to the board with royal icing. I'm finishing it off by piping some grass and adding some candy raspberries in front of the door. The final area is the frosted palace, so I'm adding some homemade meringues that I made to this area. Alright, the decorating is complete, and now I'm going to do one last thing, cover my board with a red ribbon to make it look more polished. I really love how this cake turned out. Castle cakes take quite a while to create, but I cannot think of a single kid who would not love having this, and that is the reward we get as bakers. Thank you all for watching, and if you have any ideas or suggestions for me, please let me know down in the comment section. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Bye!